The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show, the home of Googlization Nation, where we talk with HR and business thought leaders about the crazy shift going on in the world of business, technology, and HR. Here's your host, Ira Wolf.
Hey, welcome back, Googlization Nation, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show. We continue to hope you, your teams, your families are safe, staying healthy. Unfortunately, not good news on a day-to-day basis, but hopefully we're going to bring some bright spots, what you can do to prepare for 2020 and get ready to grow and thrive despite the uncertainty that we're living in. We're just a few days away from the election, too, finally. Man, this has been an eternity. Mike?
Yeah, I was just thinking, thank goodness, enough is enough. Let's just button this up and focus on something else. It's just all-consuming. It's everywhere. It's everything, everywhere, every day.
Yeah, I can't. Hang on a minute. I just got to switch something. Hopefully, it's going to come through here now. Yeah, it's strange. When I talk, it comes through when you talk, it comes through the speaker. When I was talking, it was coming through my headset. So. Very, very odd. So technology. So yeah, next week this time for next week's show, I don't know if we're going to have a new president or we're going to be in the Supreme Court or what's going to happen.
It's going to be interesting.
One of those, yeah, it's going to be a fascinating week, which sort of leads me to one of the things we want to talk about today. Our guest is going to be Jen Ferguson. She has a company, Sales 911, but that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about, she's got a passion for something that's close to you and me. We've been in this business a while, and so many companies call you or me and say, hey, we're looking for a way to find out if somebody fits in our organization. And what they were saying is, we have a round hole, and we're looking for the exact round pegs that fit in there. And then when it comes to talking about diversity, new ideas, innovation, growth, there isn't any because everybody thinks alike. So Jen is going to be talking about culture add versus culture fit. So we're excited to really have her on. And she's got a really, really large, a lot of people that follow her. So thank you, all those who are listening today to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show, especially if it's the first time. One of the other things, Rebel, maybe you can put up that adaptability slide and banner I had, and then we're going to jump into we're going to get Jen on. But for the last, you probably heard me talk about the last few weeks, I've been really focused on the adaptability quotient. It's not only an assessment, but it really is a roadmap of what companies, what individuals are going to need to adapt. And the good news about adaptability, it's a skill that people can learn. We talk about things like grit and resilience. We talk about mental flexibility. We talked about growth mindset. A lot of those conversation pieces we've actually had guests on. What the adaptability quotient actually does is put that all into one umbrella. So we measure grit, resilience, mental flexibility, mindset on learning. We talk about a few character aspects of it, like extroversion, emotional range, motivating style, thinking style, and then what impact your environment has on there. So long story short, we've got a master class coming up in just in another week, actually next Wednesday too. The master class starts right before the show. And it's going to be 3 consecutive months, first Wednesday of each month for 2 hours. You're going to be joined by some other cohorts. You'll get an opportunity to complete a personalized AQ If you have 5 team members, you'll actually get a team report. And we'll make sure that the banner is running across here as the show goes on, and I'll make an announcement toward the end. But adaptability, identified by Harvard Business Review, was the #1 in-demand skill for the future. They called it the competitive advantage. World Economic Forum identified it as the #1 skill that people are going to need going forward. And that was before the pandemic. That was before we reached uncertainty.
That now it's like priority 1 and has been put on steroids, because I'm running into people, clients every day are calling me saying their workforce, some of them are having trouble with the pivots from working from home, and the adaptability is, or lack thereof, is front and center.
Yeah, so absolutely. And then for any listeners today, there's a special code that we're going to be able to provide. But let's jump into it. We're going to also have, as I said, we have a new segment at the end of the show, not at the end of the show, basically the second segment. We're going to be featuring Joyce Joya. She's a good friend of mine for a long time. I've been reading her Herman Report, the Herman Report. In fact, I interviewed Joyce and her husband Roger. Unfortunately, he passed away almost 20 years ago, August of 2001. They were on my show, and we had an opportunity to. And it was 2 weeks before 9/11. Boy. Crazy. So yeah. So the again, the weekly Herman Trend Alert that she publishes. You can go up to the website. She'll give that when we're on the air. But we're going to talk about HR in the new normal, or not in the new normal, HR in normal 2.0. And the goal is to help everybody stay ahead of the curve. So Joyce will be joining us after the break. Now, let's get to Jen. Jen Ferguson is founder and I think CEO or president of Sales 911. And her passion, as I said, we're going to be talking about culture add and culture fit. So hopefully she's joining us now, coming back from the green room. Jen, are you there? Yeah, there you are. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
So did I get that right? You're the founder. Are you CEO or president? So I never.
CEO, founder. I'm a solopreneur at the moment. So
all of the above. So yeah, but we go by lots of titles as well. So chief sales officer too, right?
Yeah. But I have a background in sales and leadership that spans over 25 years.
Wow.
So this idea. I'm sorry.
I said, you don't look like you have 25 years. You must have started with the grapefruit, the juice stand on your front porch.
Well, almost, but yeah, I started my career pretty early. Yeah, pretty early on, and actually looked more like a jungle gym than a ladder. So, the concept of culture fit versus add has been important to me throughout my career because of the way people look at me and how they look at my transferable skills. So this is a topic I talk about frequently as a VIP expert over at Fairy God Boss, as just someone in the sales community trying to bring to light the idea that if you're looking for the culture fit, that from that Forbes tribal meaning of someone who looks like you, someone who thinks like you, someone who, works like you do and is very much the same. Right. And when you look at culture add, it's really what a person brings to the table as opposed to what they lack. So things that are different about them or unique. Moms looking to get back into the workforce that may have left the workforce and have those transferable skills that are just trying to get back in. And so as you are talking about adaptability, I thought, what an amazing segue, because that's one of the things that, people who are a little different are known for, having to adapt, being, having that adversity of trying to get roles and trying to fit in within organizations where there isn't inclusive cultures, and then looking for places where they're going to be celebrated and be able to thrive. So that was a really interesting segue there.
Well, we're going to be talking a lot about that, and everybody. It doesn't matter, we talked before about being a job seeker, as well. Whether you're a candidate, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're leading a company. I was on started early this morning with a conference. I was the keynote virtually, of course. And one of the people was from Nationwide. She was, I can't remember her title, but she was the VP of Digital Transformation. And right at the end, I mentioned adaptability, and she jumped all over that as far as, where they're going, of how important adaptability was, in that.
Yeah, no, 100%. That ability to be agile and also to take in other perspectives, that diversity of thought, and being able to look at it from either your customer's point of view, from a different audience's perspective, right? And how do you do that if you have a lineup of people who are all the same, right? That impacts the products you're creating with bias. It impacts the culture you're cultivating and how your customers experience it. It impacts everything throughout your organization as to the limitations by having an entire collective that might not have that diversity of thought.
So companies are looking for people who fit, and that's important when we're talking. I assume, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I sort of got a sense where you're headed. It's still important that people fit within a culture. We're not talking about, hey, forget that, we just need people who can do their jobs.
You need to have people who align with your values. You don't necessarily need to have people that fit within your culture. They align with your values. And then bringing on people who are different, who bring unique perspectives and bring something unique to the table, has value by giving you that diversity of thought.
So talk a little bit about the difference, because a lot of companies say, here's our values, and this is the people we need to find. So they technically are still hiring for values. There's a whole program out there about hiring for values. How do you differentiate culture, values?
Yeah. As soon as you start adding the word culture fit into it, you start really putting in that unconscious bias, because you're looking at where people are going to fit in within the team as opposed to where they align from a values perspective, right? And so they're using this idea of culture fit by weaponizing it against people who are different, whether it's age, sex, race, whatever the difference is. If you're not like me, you're not going to fit within our space. And so by making sure that a person has the right values, or the values that align with you, but bring something unique to the table, you're looking for people who are different. And that difference will then be able to allow you to have more diversity of thought. And it's that diversity of thought that's going to make you a more productive, collaborative environment that's taking in many perspectives as opposed to just one perspective. Right. Across an organization.
So when Mike and I when we talk about values, it goes all over the place. So, you certainly have faith-based organizations, you have leadership, or you have political organizations, you have organizations that have a certain cause or a passion, whether it's Planned Parenthood. And Mike and I have used an assessment for a while. It's a kind of a business motivators. And what it does is it looks at personal interests. It used to be called personal interests, attitudes, and values. So, but it took it much further than that. And it looked at, are you as an individual motivated by money, power, learning, community? One of them was called doctrine. And that doctrine is a strong belief in something. And it was very interesting early on. One of my very first clients was a Christian radio station, and I'm not Christian, but I supported what they did. I supported their values, and they wanted to hire people who fit their culture, who felt passionate about it. The problem is the people who felt most passionate about it were also narrow-minded. They were so focused. It was like anybody who didn't believe what they believed in wasn't good enough to belong.
Yeah. So let me give you an example, right? So I was acknowledged as a Women in Sales by Sales Hacker just this month, and I received a t-shirt which I was very grateful for, very happy. And the logo on the back of the shirt said up and to the right. And up to the right, to me, reminds me of the 90s of people who are looking up and to the right are not necessarily telling the truth. I think that's been debunked since. But I asked all of the women I knew.
That's NLP stuff. I remember. Yeah, you're ringing bells in my head that go way, way back. Yeah.
I'm showing my 25 years now, right? But you know, what they meant was a growth chart. Mm-hmm. Okay, but none of the women I spoke to acknowledged that, like that day that I was asking everyone. Since then on LinkedIn, you know, some people said that's what it means, but you know, a lot of them thought it was something more graphic. Some people thought it was the right, like politics, the right. Mm. And so all of those thoughts, while Sales Hacker is sending out something that, you know, they believe is about growth, all of the different perspectives that they hadn't considered had all come into play during that conversation. And it's that narrow-minded thinking of not necessarily including all of the perceptions that would be out there for that particular brand. Now, they didn't do anything wrong. They just, you know, hadn't considered that other people would view it a different way. So imagine that going into products. Let's say you were making a product and unconsciously you put in a perception into the product that was very limiting, right? Now your product has bias into it. So having this diversity of thought within an organization allows you to bring different, unique perspectives to the table. Maybe I was the only one who thought up and to the right was going to be, you know, I should check someone's eyes, you know, whether they're lying or, you know, seeing where their eyes go, whether it's memory recall or not. Right. The thing is, nobody had ever told them that. And nobody had ever considered that there was a different definition of up and to the right. And it's that unique perspective that many organizations need. And by looking for people who bring something different, and you don't know what that, you know, you can look at everything that's sort of below the surface, because we know when you're looking at someone, right, there's everything above the surface of the iceberg, mm-hmm. right? You can see what I look like, you know, some general things about me without necessarily looking at my resume. You don't maybe know, you know, whether I graduated college or all the other things, what my faith is, what I believe in, what, you know, how I identify, all of those things that you don't know. That's why looking for people who are different, you get these diverse perspectives that allow you to build better products, to have more collaborative, different ideas in teams, and you'll be able to be more productive for it, as well as more profitable, as most studies show.
So, like, can I jump in and ask a question, Jen? Because and I'm being devil's advocate because I do it so well. So you want to get diversity in the workforce and various viewpoints on things. How much is too much? Is there such a thing as too much, where someone can have such a divergent point of view that they disrupt things in a negative way and creates more harm than good? Or is that not an issue?
Well, it depends on the personalities within an organization. I mean, from the top of the company, you have to be open. How open are they to different ideas? How open are they to pushing the status quo? How far are they willing to push the status quo? You know, there's a book that I love called Rebel Talent, where it talks about, you know, what someone who is a natural status quo pusher brings to an organization that will actually help propel them forward with these different ideas. Yeah, you don't want to bring someone in disruptive, but if you're giving everyone an opportunity to be heard and you're managing people as a whole person, you know, like everything about them, what inspires them, what motivates them, what they want their future to look like, what success looks like for them, and actually support them in those efforts. They support you in your efforts. You create a more collaborative environment, more open. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. So it's basically, it's set that, like many other things, the tone is set at the top. And if you've got a leader or a leadership team that encourages various viewpoints and divergent thinking, then that's going to open the door wider to foster the growth of people who may be coming into the organization who are out there on the periphery, compared to someone who's, change averse and they don't want anything disrupted. It's going to be more challenging to implement that divergent viewpoint across the organization.
Exactly. So if you have an organization that's open to let's break some stuff so that we could fail fast and move quick, and right. Or are you an organization that is, I sort of want things the way I want them, and I don't necessarily want to break too much stuff. I mean, not that there's a significant difference, right? And that adaptability, right? So taking it back to your adaptability study and really preparing for the end of 2020, 2021, and going into where you're going to be able to push the status quo to have growth. Is it going to be the people who are everyone is the same, or is it going to be the diverse people who are going to bring that diversity of thought? Is it going to be the culture fit or the culture add that's going to help you push the status quo?
Well, the culture add is going to be the accelerant, I would imagine, because that's going to take you beyond where you've been operating up till this point.
Yeah, so it aligns perfectly with what you guys are talking about now with that adaptability.
Right.
It's those people who have always been pushing to sort of get in the door, get into, break the glass ceiling, to move into organizations, into leadership roles that have been barred from it because either they're not being considered because they're not the right fit, or because, when you're looking at different people, sometimes for men, studies have proven, you'll look at them as what's possible, as opposed to sometimes women, where you look at them based on entirely on experience. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to look to push the boundaries, what do you think you need? A culture fit or a culture add?
Right. So, Jen, you mentioned a little bit ago, if your boardroom, from leadership at the top, if your boardroom has 10 or 15 people around the room, all looking like me, some with maybe more hair, but basically all white men over 60 years old, that's a problem. I've often said, and I got criticized for this, I said, I can talk about diversity and inclusion and equity, but I'm the worst. I can give examples of challenges that I've had, religion, my height, whatever it might be. But the reality is I've never walked in the shoes of somebody of a black male. Mm-hmm. I don't understand that. And until recently, it got exposed. Because no one was willing to talk about it. I don't know if you saw This Is Us last night, the new show, but it was basically how, one of the characters for 40 years, he celebrated his 40th birthday, said his whole life, no one wanted to talk about it, and they were embarrassed to talk about it. But it goes for all things. It goes for whether you're tall or short, fat or slim, whether you're male or female. Everybody had these issues, and if there's anything that we're seeing now is finally it's going out in the open, and there's so much value that can be added rather than trying to get that round peg to the round hole.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I do these types of events specifically to create that awareness, because the only way to do that is to reach out to male allies and CEOs and make sure that they understand that those ads, as long as they have the skills, it's easy to look at a person and say, hey, you don't have this, or find the gaps or the lacks. But what are they bringing to the table that's unique while still possessing the skills?
Right. It goes back to that anonymous, almost an anonymous interview. Being able to have that, to go back to. So you mentioned you started off talking about transferable skills. I don't know how far back you went into my background, but my first career, I was a dentist. I took a pre-med path all the way through, had a successful practice for 17 years. When I left, the question was, what do you know about running a business? How can you consult on this? So you're going to consult dental practices, right? And I said, no, I fired them all. I didn't want to do that. They weren't willing to adapt to a new world. That was 25 years ago. The reality is I had critical thinking skills. I knew how to run a business. I knew how to build teams. I knew how to deliver good customer service. I understood technologies. And I go, how do you take those and get, well, what do you know about my industry? Yeah. It still happens.
I hear you. I mean, a good bulk, half of my background is in retail and like general management of businesses, right? So cigar bars, managing, a restaurant, cigar club, retail stores. So being able to calculate the dollars per square foot, right, comparatively to
business acumen,
scalable SaaS revenue model is literally the same thing. Or how about liquor inventory compared to a SaaS scalable model? But they don't necessarily consider any of my background before I actually entered into SaaS. So if you look at me, you've got 10 years SaaS experience. Your first, decade doesn't matter.
Right.
And it's funny because that's where I actually manage the largest teams, teams of 50 people and more in retail. And so the idea that these transferable skills don't apply to other industries is a little silly, because it's that business acumen. It is that strategic thinking. It's being able to manage a whole business without trying to figure out what it is to get it to the next level and get it forward.
So we're coming up on the end of our segment here. We got a few minutes. What's the one thing, if somebody says, I get it, I hear you, I'm ready to move forward, what's the first thing you would suggest someone does who's listening to start making this change from culture fit to culture add?
Yeah, I would take a hard look at your hiring practices and what your interview practices actually look like. I would go through and, if you're not recording those interviews, sometimes those hiring managers from an executive level really digging into what that experience looks like, because honestly, the employee experience starts at the very, very beginning. And that's when you submit an application, and understanding what that looks like through the whole process is super important to finding out what an experience looks like for someone who might be a culture add. But additionally, you can hire all the culture ads, but if you're not creating an inclusive environment where their voice is going to be heard and they're going to be able to have that ability to thrive, they're really going to just leave.
You mean just putting a few tokens around the table doesn't do it?
Yeah, that's not going to work. You have to give them, the opportunity to share their thoughts and, give them as much time as everyone else and be actually inclusive. I've got an article I wrote on it for the sales community at SaaSsales.io. I'm a premium author for them. And I'm also in Fairy Godboss, so you can find me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. I actually do a Sales and Leadership with Heart series on LinkedIn Live every Tuesday at noon Eastern. So you can catch me there.
Cool. Yeah, and Fairy Godboss, we had, which you just talked about, I think we just referenced it, but now Nicole Garati, is over there. She was a guest 4 or 5, 6 weeks ago. I don't know. It all runs together. Blur's Day. Every day is the same anymore. Blur's Day. But yeah, Nicole just went over there as well. So I don't know if I assume you know Nicole. So yeah. Excellent. So we can get you on LinkedIn. I know you got a Twitter. You're up on Twitter. You run a ton you publish a ton of stuff. So I highly encourage you to do that. Any final words there, Jen, for our groups?
Just, find the value in the culture add and take a second look at people and understand that what they bring to the table that's different and unique has a lot of value.
Appreciate it. Hey, I got one final question, and you got like 30 seconds to answer this. This has nothing to do with what we talked about, just in general. I heard this yesterday. I thought it was a fascinating question. What do you think what do you think would have happened if we didn't have technology for this pandemic?
Ooh.
Yeah. I can't, I don't know. I can't even imagine. We would certainly be on the phone a lot, right?
My response to that question was 1918, going back to the last pandemic. And phones weren't commonplace then. Either electricity was just coming into being, automobile. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, can you imagine? I mean,
I was thinking landlines. I was thinking cords all over my house with the landlines and me, like on the phone.
Right.
It certainly would be a very different experience. So very grateful.
Can you imagine? No, Netflix would just have 3 channels on our TV that turned off at midnight. We got the the
national anthem. Good night. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Hey,
back in 1918, the women didn't have the right to vote either. So
a lot of things. They didn't have the right to. Some of them didn't have a right to vote into the 1950s, 60s.
So So I mean, I'd probably be teaching my kids from home anyway.
Hey, Jen, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much. Really appreciate you being here. Good luck. We'll be in touch. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We're going to head off into our commercials. You've been listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. We just had a great guest. What a fun session with Jen Ferguson talking about culture ad. We are coming up with our new segment, which is going to be Ahead of the Curve, Normal 2.0 with Joyce Joya. We're going to be talking about HR in Normal 2.0, and we'll continue the conversation a little bit with her about culture. She's been busy in the chat here with lots of questions. We're going to go and hear from our sponsor, Success Performance Solutions, and you'll hear a little bit more about adaptability. Hiring top talent shouldn't be left up to the roll of the dice. And yet, that's exactly what many organizations do. They roll the dice, cross their fingers, and pray for a better outcome. Hiring the right employees the first time is much too important and way too costly to leave to a game of chance. Your employees and your customers deserve better. For 25 years, Success Performance Solution has been helping small and medium-sized businesses hire smarter. They offer pre-employment and leadership assessments from typing and data entry to C-suite competence. Whether it's production, sales, healthcare, call centers, or management, Success Performance Solutions can help. Visit their website at www.successperformancesolutions.com to schedule a free demo or call 800-803-4303.
A lot of you might be feeling like you're standing in deep shift. But do you know what grows and rises out of deep shift? Opportunity. To successfully navigate the shift to the new normal, each of us must learn to rapidly adapt to the speed of change. Some of us are hardwired for this. Others, not so much. That's where Success Performance Solutions can help. Success Performance Solutions is now your AQ headquarters. Whether you are personally struggling with the next chapter in your career or wondering how ready your team is for fast, disruptive change, our AQ assessment and coaching will provide you a detailed, scientifically backed roadmap to guide you into the new normal. Optimize your adaptability today. Contact Success Performance Solutions about evaluating your team's change readiness or joining our upcoming AQ Masterclass. Visit successperformancesolutions.com or call us at 800-803-4303.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show. We're going to have our new segment here, Ahead of the Curve. Joyce Joya is going to be joining us momentarily.
Hey, Joyce.
How are you? Hey, Joyce.
Thrilled to be here with you all. Just thrilled. So
I'll give a quick intro for you. You got your futurist tag up there, but you're CEO of the Herman Group. We crossed paths for many years. I've been following the Herman Trend Alert for years, and proof. Here's my cassette.
You found
almost 19 years ago.
I love it that you
almost
found
19 years ago. This is how we recorded this. We got on the phone, as Jen was talking about. We got on the landline. We called into a radio station up in Rhode Island at 7 a.m. It had to be like 6 a.m. for you. I think wherever you were in Chicago or wherever you were. Yeah. Or you were in North Carolina?
No, we were in Greensboro, so it was Eastern time. So.
Yeah, so 7 a.m. They recorded it, and then it took 2 weeks to get this in the mail. And then, you talk about the new normal 2.0. That was like normal minus 1.0.
And now we have these.
Now we don't even see it.
Now, you're right.
Now, literally, so and then it would take us a week or so to record these. I still have the machine. We'd put labels on it. We'd put them in envelopes. It cost us whatever it cost us in postage then to get it out. And who knows if there was no way to know if anybody even opened it or listened to it. Now we've got a listener base, and we can do this on the fly, and it's real time and amazing. So
and we can track it.
And that's less than 20 years. We're not talking about going back to our grandparents' days to do that. So welcome. Excited about this segment. So.
Me too. And before we begin, I need to share something with you all. In Roger Herman's book, Turbulence, Challenges and Opportunities in the World of Work, Are You Prepared for the Future? There was an entire chapter, now we're talking 1998, ancient history, right?
Right.
It was an entire chapter on the new adaptables. And what he said was, back then, that the new adaptables would be the people who would be most valued, most treasured in our workplace of the future. And here we are.
Here we are.
And I think you're perfectly positioned. I love this idea. I think anybody who is preparing a team to move into the future would do very well to get on board with your AQ.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I really
I'm going to have Rebel. There's actually a link and a code. Hopefully, Rebel will get at running across here at some point. But Joyce, you've been doing the Herman Trend Alert for long as
1998.
Okay.
So more than 20 years now.
So yeah, it's a long time. I had done a newsletter. Mike knows it. Mike, we used to rebrand it for Mike.
For 13 years, I sent that newsletter out every Wednesday, like religion.
Yeah. So we did that for a very, very long time. But you've been doing this every week, goes out diligently. Lately, you've been talking about Normal 2.0, and you've been doing a series, not only about HR, but travel, transportation,
leadership. Next week, I'm going to do hospitality hacks in Normal 2.0. I've uncovered some really interesting out-of-the-box ideas that hoteliers around the world are using to make sure that they don't have to go under to fill those hotel rooms. So yeah, I've been looking at a number of different areas, and I have such a low threshold of boredom.
Oh, tell me about it.
I like to play in a lot of sandboxes, and
yeah, you two are one of the few people I can email after 8:30 at night, and actually, and I say after 11. And get a response. Most people are, it's like, in fact, we talk about doing things and they go, oh, they're in bed by 8:30. I go, we don't even eat dinner till 10 o'clock at night. So.
Right. Well, this week, it's coming out today. I'm talking about empathy in the critical nature of empathy and in Normal 2.0. So we've got lots to talk about today and moving into the future.
Okay, so we just have we actually have a few minutes. We got like 7-8 minutes here. Let's talk about we can talk about the HR. In the new Normal 2.0, but can't wait to get into empathy because that comes up in every conversation we have these days, and people are making it a buzzword, which is a problem because then it just people say, oh yeah, I can walk in your other people's shoes. We did a 15-minute exercise, and now I see what we need to do.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Let's talk about the HR issues. So what's HR look like in Normal 2.0?
Well, it's different, needless to say. I mean, when you're recruiting and you're not sitting across the desk from someone like you were before, certainly that's very different. And interestingly, companies are now telling me that they can hire people from anywhere, basically in the world, as long as those people are willing to work on the schedule of the headquarters, where the headquarters is located. So that's a big change. We're also seeing.
Joyce, let me just give you one real quick example of that. I was on my call this morning. The person who followed me was VP of Digital Transformation. I think that's her title at Nationwide Insurance. And that's what she was talking about and how things have changed. And what she said, they're based in Columbus, Ohio, which is not the center of the universe for IT. That is, they're basically, you got the Buckeyes, you got Ohio State University, great school, but that is not Silicon Valley by any means. And to attract data scientists to an organization like that, now they basically, what the pandemic forced them to do is they closed a lot of their corporate offices, but now they realize they can hire people anywhere.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting to see that companies are now in a totally different place because they can. And when you're recruiting, there's also a very important, I don't know whether you'd call it a skill or an ability, but the ability to work on one's own, the ability to, to be focused and get the work done in spite of the fact that the dog is barking and the kids are running around and you're feeling the need to clean things up.
Adaptability, right?
Well, but focus, right? And one of the things that I forecast is that we will have coaches who will help people to do that focusing and to apply themselves in the way that they need to do so. And we may have assessments, in fact, which tell us the likelihood of someone needing one of those coaches. And people may, in fact, be hiring, recruiters may be looking, corporate recruiters may be looking for people who have the ability to work on their own better than others. I mean, it's a different playing field now. But recruiting is just one small piece. And I want to get into onboarding because to me, that's really the exciting thing. Because I loved what IBM used to do in Second Life. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I have a video of it. IBM used to onboard people from all over the world simultaneously in Second Life.
Right. I had a chapter of that in my book about Second Life. Actually, you probably know Tom Sampson. You know Tom?
I do.
He was an IMC, from Dallas. He was actually building, and I don't know if he was in the same program, but he built a Second Life community. For those who don't know, it's a virtual community before we had the glass. I mean, it was early on.
Well, no, I think doesn't it still exist? It's actually a virtual world.
I wrote my book in 2008. So it was early on, and there was only kind of geeky people, people going in and creating avatars. But SMU, I think it was at Southern Methodist University, they created in their MBA program a model. And I don't know if they were using it for onboarding, but they were using it to create business simulations within there. And I know Ford was actually they actually had a showroom for Ford.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that. And I actually gave presentations in Second Life, although because of bandwidth, it was not fun. But what I would do is, it's kind of like when I performed the first online wedding for a gay couple years and years and years ago. Probably around 2008, I was on somebody else's computer who happened to have AOL chat installed, and I would grab a paragraph and then dump it into the chat. A paragraph at a time and dump it into the chat.
Oh, so this was, that was before cameras and streaming were so this was all done via text, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is 2006, 2007. I was trying to see if I can even find the chapter here. But yeah, I wrote a whole chapter about that back then. And Tom was the first person that took me through that. And actually, and I ended up speaking because of that at the IMC, which I know you've been involved with IMC for years.
Yeah, well, actually, I have some amazing news to share. The IMC has just awarded me named me as a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants.
Well,
I was blown away by it. It's really
well, congratulations. That's quite an honor. I mean, there's a lot of very, very well respected people within that group. So quite an accomplishment, Joy. You're going to have 2 profiles on LinkedIn. So.
Well, you know, it's when people want to introduce me on a radio show, I have to try to decide, do I talk about the fact that I've been on television 70 times, national and local television, including foreign countries, or do I talk about the fact that I've got articles in Time and Forbes and elsewhere, you know? Yeah. I mean, it's an abundance of riches.
Well, and it's just great that we finally, after 19 years, we figured out, or 20 years, we figured out how to make this connection and get you on, work together, literally work together on this.
So let's get back to some other things.
We just have a minute or two. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the other thing I want to talk about is another new concept that I've come up with a friend named David Litwin, and I call it workification. It's the converse of gamification. Gamification is the application of game mechanics, game design, and game elements to non-game systems and processes. In other words, Bunchball and some of the other companies that will create a game for you for whatever work needs to be done. Well, my idea is that because there are so many huge installed databases of these games like Fortnite and Capture the Flag and League of Legends, why don't we find a way to incorporate work or training into those regular games?
Well, it goes back to your onboarding.
We could do that too, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, onboarding is horrible. It's usually, here's 25 pieces of paper you have to fill out, or now digitally, let's do an electronic signature, show up, and they go, oh, nobody told me you were coming today. Oh, your desk isn't ready. The computer equipment's not ready. Why don't you hang out with Joyce for the next 2 days and follow her around? Welcome to the new company. This is a great place to work.
And it's a little hard to do when you're talking digital, isn't it?
Yeah, a whole new ball game there. Really? Real quickly, one other point. What's another point you wanted to cover?
Well, employee retention in these days and times is going to be very different too. And if a company does not overtly exhibit that they have that really important empathy, they're not going to be able to hold on to their valued talent. People want to be appreciated. They want to work in an organization where they can do work that matters, where it contributes to the bottom line of the organization. And I've sort of substituted meaningful work for purposeful work for meaningful work. No. So the whole concept of purpose has emerged as being even more important than mission.
Yeah, and we can talk about that subject at another event. But we're running out of time. Really appreciate you being here for the launch of our Ahead of the Curve, Normal 2.0. We'll be talking about this every week, be part of this. How can people get your newsletter? First of all,
they can go to hermantrendalert.com.
Okay, we have that scroll. There it is.
It's scrolling. Yep,
right.
They can.
Or they can go to the Herman Group and
website and click on Trend Alert.
Okay,
right.
Find out. Excellent. I highly encourage everybody to sign up and subscribe to the newsletter. Joyce, thank you very much. Appreciate it. This will be a regular feature. And we got a lot to talk about. So
yes, next week, by the way, we're going to address leadership in Normal 2.0.
Cool. Good topic. We'll talk fast.
See you next week.
Yes, looking forward to it. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ira.
Yeah. So, Michael, this is your third week on the show. We're getting the hang of it, the swing of things. Great guest. I like the new format because we really stay pretty focused on this. Next week, we'll find out. Maybe we'll have a new president, or at least
it's going to be an interesting show next week, just to see where we are. Are we in limbo? Are we in the middle, at the beginning of court proceedings? Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. And
Joyce will be back with our new segment, and we've got Josh Little, I think, is our guest next week. We're going to be talking about a new technology as actually talking about Zoom fatigue. Talking about another hot topic, so I'm sure we'll have contributing. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show. We're here every week, 1 p.m. Wednesdays, or you can find us on replays on YouTube, Facebook, and almost every podcast that's out there. You can easily find us. Thanks, Michael Spermulli, for being my co-host.
Great to be here. Looking forward to next week.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Jen Ferguson, for being a great guest today. Until next week, don't let the shift hit your plans.